Let us bring on the Noltenator. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Now I got you. Okay.
All right.
How you doing, John? It's good to see you.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
Is that your house you're in?
Yeah, I'm in my house. I am. Yep.
Looks really nice. Jeez, I have to say,
Thank you.
You put those pictures on Twitter, and I've never forgiven you for leaving L.A. and going back to the country that you love. But I have to say, when I see those pictures, I know why you did it. It is beautiful out there.
Yes, it is. It's perfect out here. We're very, very happy. We miss the people in L.A., but we don't miss that one-story ghetto even a little bit.
I don't blame you. All right. So I know how that you, unlike Donald Trump, you're very restrained in your opinions, and you always, try to speak in a measured tone. Tell me what your reaction was to this healthcare thing.
Well, I think I have two reactions. The first is towards these never Trump idiots who try to blame Trump in some way for it failing. I mean, the Republican Party, the oh so precious establishment Republican Party, has been promising us for going on 7 years that they were going to repeal this. For 7 years, they took our money in these fundraising efforts. For 7 years, they got us out to vote in historic numbers. This is a promise that those 300 men and women have made probably collectively 10,000 times over the last 7 years that they were going to repeal this. This is a promise that they made in what we now know were completely phony votes to repeal it, knowing that when he was president, Obama would veto it. These people are garbage. They're just scumbags. They're liars. They conned us. They grifted us. And they will never see another penny from me. And that's a campaign I'm going to start on Twitter, is to get people to stop sending money to the GOP. I must get 20 fundraising letters a week from these idiots. And I'm going to send them back now and tell them not a penny. I'm going to waste all their postage to send them nothing but a message that says not a penny until you fund the wall, you repeal Obamacare, and you reform taxes. Because they have got it. They got the whole government. They can do anything they want within the reconciliation process, and these cowardly grifters refuse to do it. And that is not Donald Trump's fault. That is their fault. They told us they would do it for 7 years, thousands and thousands of times. They're bigger liars than Barack Obama.
You know, while I agree with you that is their fault, I do think that Trump I've certainly come far to first of all, I enjoy Trump. I enjoy the hell out of Trump. He's the most entertaining president ever, and I have come a long way toward respecting him and seeing where he's going and why the people who love him. But it is his job to kick these people into line. I mean, he's good at doing that, and he only does it now. And I know Mitch McConnell told him to back off, but he has got to herd these cats, because that is the president's job to some degree. That's not blaming him. It's just saying this is a skill he has got to learn, don't you think?
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying in any way that Trump maybe couldn't have done something better, because I keep hearing, like you do, it's sort of these alternate attacks on him. When he gets involved in something, he's hurting. The best thing he can do is stay out of it because he's so toxic when he's really not. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's two different arguments. Could Trump have done something different? Maybe, but it has nothing to do with the fact that should have passed. The repeal should have passed both houses of Congress, even if Trump was promising to veto it. These liars made this promise to us thousands and thousands of times. They stole our money. They made us go to the polls for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And they've done nothing. And this is totally and completely on them.
So one of the things that you and I definitely agree on is that Trump's war against the media is one of the things that has needed to be fought for a long time. That I think that some of the people over at National Review, and I love them all, but I think some of the things they do not understand is what the effect has been on people to just be disrespected by every network, by every Hollywood star, by every professor who gets quoted as an expert for 8 years while Obama kind of played the music to go along with the words. And I think that Trump Unleashed has been great. How do you feel the war against the media is going? Who's winning?
Oh, I don't think there's any question that Trump is winning. I think that the the three biggest propaganda outlets in the country are CNN, the Washington Post, and the New York Times. And the Washington Post, I don't know how they're doing, but they're a bit of a laughingstock now. Mm-hmm. The New York Times is definitely a laughingstock. And even though we're told time and again that Trump is a boon for journalism right now, the New York Times is engaging in massive layoffs. And CNN is in a ratings death spiral. Right now, Nicole Wallace, and I think we can all agree that Nicole Wallace would make the perfect poster child for making hate a virtue. She's just horrible. She's got more viewers than the entire CNN lineup. I mean, Nicole freaking Wallace. So their ratings are in the tank, and CNN is just a huge joke now. I don't think anybody takes anything they do seriously. So I don't think there's any question that the polls show it. I mean, 57% of the American people I saw today believe the media is being too hard on Trump. And the media was jubilant when their approval rating went from, I think, 20% to 24% lately. I mean, they're less popular than Congress. And it isn't so much that Trump's been doing it, not to take anything away from him, but the media's been doing it to themselves. I call it death by suicide through asphyxia masturbation. Because they've completely murdered themselves. And all Trump is doing, he's not taking any of their crap. And he's just pointing at them and laughing at them. And he's brilliant at the politics of ridicule. The politics of ridicule are how George W. Bush beat Al Gore and John Kerry. Ultimately, it was the politics of ridicule. The alpha male always wins. And believe it or not, Barack Obama was able to alpha male John McCain and Mitt Romney. And that's what's happening here. Trump is the ultimate alpha male, and he is just bedeviling these news outlets into national jokes. And I think that the ratings show that. I think MSNBC is doing well because everyone from all the leftists that watch CNN are running to MSNBC. So because they can't count on CNN. CNN lies to them too much. It's very hard to be lied to and get your hopes up that James Comey is gonna tell the whole world that Trump lied about Comey telling him that he wasn't under investigation, and then they get let down. I just think that even leftists are tired of being lied to by CNN. So MSNBC is doing well, and good for them. They're openly left wing. They deserve to do well. I have no problem with that.
And not only that, I agree with you. I think that their openness about who they are is absolutely decisive in how you judge them. And I think they also see, because they see that Fox is having problems, they brought on Hugh Hewitt. I think they're talking to other conservatives. I think they're going to look for a little balance, which is, since we do need a press, it would be nice to have it would be kind of a dream of mine that we would have an actual fair journalistic establishment. Do you think there's any chance that these guys are going to wake up and say, oh, maybe Trump has a point? No.
No, never. No. If that was going to happen, it would have happened. It probably would have happened years and years ago. I've been watching the media very closely, especially since the rise of new media. And when new media came along in force, which was really after the whole Rathergate fiasco, and you could see that there was this group of online people who were fact-checking the media and doing it very closely and doing it very well. At that point, I thought to myself, well, now the media is going to have to shape up because they're being policed. And what I've seen is they've just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. More to the left, more open about their biases, more dishonest, more lies, more fake news. There's been more scandals over the last 10 years than I think in the entire history of at least the 20th century of media. So no, they're never going to get better. They're just going to keep throwing it at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Which means we have to build a media that actually goes out and doesn't just give opinions, but actually goes out and covers the news in a fair way.
And that's happening. I remember giving a speech to a group of people after Obama beat Romney. And it was a group of conservatives, and they were all just desolate. And I remember saying at the speech that people need to feel good because the media landscape is changing. And there were news organizations, and I'm going to get some of the names wrong, but I think I remember the Washington Free Beacon had just come online, and a bunch of other news outlets had just come online, along with Breitbart. And I told them, I said, this is a very good thing. I said, the landscape has changed dramatically in the last year. And it wasn't enough to affect the 2012 election, but it's going to be enough to affect the 2016 election because our side is not just throwing rocks anymore. We're not only good at journalism, we're very good at muddying the waters just as effectively as the media muddied the waters to protect Barack Obama and try and drag Hillary Clinton over the finish line. We're very good at that tactical aspect of it, which some people call whataboutism, but I just call sticking to the precedents that the media set, holding the media to the precedents, because they're the ones who set the rules. And if this was okay under Obama, I'm sorry, but it's going to have to be okay now, because losing like a gentleman when your country is at stake is no virtue.
Well, I certainly agree with that. I mean, we have, and the thing about whataboutism is it was named that because the Soviet Union would torture and jail and execute people, and when America would complain, they would say, well, what about the fact you held slaves? And that's actually not a good point. It is a good point to say if you have a double standard, then we can never win. We did have a disagreement about this thing where they shut down the Julius Caesar, which I thought, where Trump was, it was Julius Caesar and he got assassinated, which I thought was reprehensible that they put it on, but I thought it was bad tactics that they shut it down. And you disagreed with me on that. Give me the other side of that.
Yeah, I think that we're in a war, period. And in a war, you can do two things. You can fight for your principles and lose, or you can fight the enemy. We need to get these people to sue for peace. And the only way to get them to sue for peace is to make them feel the pain of their own behavior. And I don't care about the motives of the people who jumped on that stage. What I care about is that the left got a taste of their own medicine right in the very heart of their own, behind their own battle lines. I mean, Central Park in Manhattan, for crying out loud. And we need to be doing more of that. Now, I'm totally opposed to violence. I am totally opposed to any sort of law breaking unless it's what this was, which I believe was civil disobedience, where the individuals who committed these acts were willing to go to prison or whatever the effect was. And I don't think what they did was any different from what Martin Luther King did. Martin Luther King was disruptive. Everybody thinks Martin Luther King was some sort of saint, the sort of simple version of a saint. He wasn't. He picked Edmund Pettit Bridge, if I'm remembering the name of it correctly, because it was named after a slaveholder. He put his thumb in the eye of the bad guys, Democrats, in the South every day of the week. And that's how he won. And we need to be doing the same thing. Until the left feels the pain of their own behavior, they're not going to sue for peace. And we cannot sit around and allow ourselves to be treated like second-class citizens by allowing this to happen to us, as we allow our stupid principles to make it to allow it to get worse and worse and worse. We did not win World War II fighting for our principles. We won World War II bombing civilians. We won World War II with a very vehemently terrible racist campaign against the Japanese, which even by 1940 standards was racist. You can't fight for your principles. You have to fight the enemy. And doing to the enemy what they do to us, as long as it doesn't involve violence, is to me a righteous act.
See, to me, the problem with this is as strategy. We're just talking about this. I'm just talking about it as strategy. Is since we're not actually in a war. That is, we're not trying to do what you do in a war, which is kill as many of the opposition as you can until they sue for peace because they simply can't go forward. We're actually in a very pitched political battle where I think the stakes are enormously high. I think the stakes are the country. This is where you and I agree. This is why we have so many areas of agreement. I think the stakes are much, much higher than the anti-Trumpers really understand. But the way you win a political war is you convince those people who can be convinced. We know the left is never going to be convinced. And I think that when we fight the way they fight, that's one thing. But when we fight for the things they fight for, like shutting down free speech, I think we're making a strategic mistake, because we can't convince those people who can be convinced by shutting down free speech, because they're going to look at us and say, well, I just have to choose whether I want to go see Shakespeare in the park or whether I want to, have Ben Shapiro shut up. That's all they're choosing between. Instead, I think we should actually make them choose between free speech. Everybody gets to talk. And between these people who silence Ben and who silence anybody who comes to their campuses, because we're not in an actual shooting war, thank God, yet, because we're not, we have to convince people, and in order to convince people, even though we can fight tough, we have to fight for the things we actually believe in, and one of those things is free speech.
Well, I agreed with that until about last year, because I think we've tried it that way. And things are getting worse. And not only are things getting worse, not only is the so-called resistance becoming even more belligerent and dangerous. But you have the infrastructure that used to police this stuff, mainly the mainstream media and even the Democratic Party, siding with the bad guys. So we've tried it that way. We've tried it my way. I won't just say your way. We've tried it my way for a decade now, 5 years now. We've tried reason. We've tried saying to them, listen, this is about free speech. We've tried appealing to their better nature. It is getting worse. And it is time that we do more than just scratch our chins and puff on our pipes. We have to protect the free speech of individuals like Ben, but also, just people that want to go to a Donald Trump rally. Not, someone like Ben, nothing against him. He's a very brave guy. Yeah. But he, when his free speech is hurt, it's a good thing for him in a way, because he gets a tremendous amount of attention to it. The cause gets a tremendous amount of attention. So he can't lose either way. And that's because he's very smart and he's handling this in a very smart way. But what about just the everyday guy or the everyday girl who wants to watch Trump speak? They can't do that anymore in certain areas, or they want to see Ann Coulter speak, or they want to see you speak or Ben speak. I'm not worried about Ben Shapiro's free speech. I'm not worried about Ann Coulter or Donald Trump's free speech. I'm worried about the free speech of the everyday American who gets a bike chain across the face. And if politeness and editorials worked, I think they would have already. And I think actually right now the left, along with the media, they're taking advantage of our weakness, which is why it's getting worse out there.
The thing is, I'm totally against fighting back against the guy who puts a bike chain in your face, but I'm fighting back to let that person speak and let that person do what they want to do. I'm not fighting back to shut them down. Listen, I got to go. It's always great to see you. I wish you were here, but I'm gonna continue to bother you there as often as I can.
Anytime.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, John. Thanks for coming on.